You want to know what terrifies a narcissist more than anything? It's not exposure. It's not even being left behind. It's a sentence, just one powerful sentence that sets your soul free, and they pray. Oh, they pray. You never find the strength to say it. But today, you're going to say it. Today, you're going to take your power back, because this isn't just about words. This is about truth. This is about freedom. This is about you. You see, narcissists operate on one thing: control. They need to own the narrative. They need to define your worth. They want your world to revolve around them, but there's one sentence that rips that control away. A sentence they fear because it signals the end of their influence. And that sentence is, I don't need you, boom, that's it. I don't need you, simple, but earth-shattering, because the moment you say it, and truly mean it, everything changes. You shatter the illusion that they matter more than your peace. You destroy the belief that their validation sustains you. You demolish the story that you're not enough without their presence. Narcissists survive by feeding on your self-doubt. They weaponize your empathy, manipulate your loyalty, and twist your kindness into chains. But when you say, I don't need you, you break those chains. You reclaim the air they tried to suck from your lungs. You rise out of the fog they buried you in. You awaken the real you, the powerful, clear, unapologetic version of yourself. This sentence is not about hate, it's not about revenge, it's about liberation, because what you're really saying is, I've found myself, I've remembered who I am, and I refuse to shrink to fit your small world any longer. Listen, you don't need their crumbs of affection. You don't need their chaos disguised as passion. You don't need the confusion, the gaslighting, the false promises. You don't need to prove your worth to someone committed to never seeing it. You don't need them, and that is exactly why they fear you. Because once you no longer need them, you become untouchable. You become free. You become you. Unfiltered, unstoppable, undeniable. So say the sentence, not just with your mouth, but with your choices, your silence, your self-respect. Say it in how you walk away. Say it in how you heal. Say it in how you rise. Because when you finally declare, I don't need you, you don't just end their control. You begin your life, and trust me, that life, that's the one you were always meant to live. Let's go. Narcissists carefully construct dynamics where others become emotionally, mentally, or even financially dependent on them. This dependency is their playground. It gives them power, control, and the illusion of superiority. They do this not through overt domination, but through subtle emotional manipulation. Praise followed by criticism, affection followed by withdrawal, validation followed by humiliation. Over time, this trains the victim to chase approval, to seek worth in the narcissist's reaction. They create situations where you begin to believe you can't function, decide, or thrive without their input. They convince you that you need them to be whole, to be valued, to be loved. That dependency isn't natural. It's manufactured, designed to weaken your sense of self so that they remain the center of your emotional universe. They exploit your empathy, knowing you'll forgive. They exploit your fear of abandonment, knowing you'll stay. And most of all, they exploit your identity, slowly dissolving the person you once were into someone easier to mold. The more you need them, the more they feel in control, and the more you rely on them, the more they feel invincible. This is why the narcissist invests so much energy into breaking your independence and reshaping it into attachment. They're not looking for love. They're looking for dominance. Love respects boundaries, but narcissists blur them. Love empowers, but narcissists weaken. And that's why dependency becomes their weapon of choice. They don't want you to see your own strength. They don't want you to remember who you were before they arrived. They want to be your answer, your source, your identity. But the truth is, you were never broken. You are conditioned to believe that your power existed only in relation to their presence. That illusion is their strategy. That dependency is their victory. The more entangled you are, the less likely you are to say the one sentence they fear the most. I don't need you. Because once you say that, once you know it to be true in your heart and bones, the spell breaks, their game crumbles, their tactics lose effect. You rise, and they shrink, because their influence was only ever real if you believed it was. Narcissists are obsessed with control, but it's not the kind of control built on strength. It's the illusion of power built on fear, confusion, and dependency. They create a false image of themselves as irreplaceable, superior, even godlike. They craft a persona that demands your admiration, attention, and obedience. The moment you begin to challenge that narrative, you threaten the very identity they've spent years manufacturing. And nothing challenges that identity more than the sentence, I don't need you. That one statement hits the deepest wound of a narcissist, their fear of being ordinary, disposable, or forgotten. When you say, I don't need you, you're doing more than rejecting them. You're shattering the mirror they use to see themselves. Narcissists don't see themselves clearly. They rely on others to reflect back an inflated version of who they want to be. That's why they surround themselves with people who will praise, fear, or submit to them. The moment you stop participating in their illusion, you become dangerous. You've seen the truth, and even worse for them, you've spoken it. That makes you powerful in a way they can't tolerate. This sentence strips away their illusion of indispensability. Narcissists crave to be seen as the center of your universe. They manipulate circumstances so that every decision must go through them, every emotion must include them, and every ounce of your energy is spent proving something to them. But when you declare that you don't need them, they realize they've lost the very thing they thought they owned. You, your autonomy, your peace, your clarity. It's all returning to you in that moment. This sentence not only terrifies them, it exposes them. It reveals that their worth was never rooted in love or value, but in manipulation and control. Their carefully crafted mask slips. They might rage, cry, guilt, trip, or play the victim, but all of it is a desperate attempt to get you to take those words back. Because they know, once you've realized your own power, once you've made peace with walking away, they can't touch you anymore. Their fear isn't just about losing you. It's about you discovering that they were never the powerful one to begin with. At their core, narcissists are profoundly insecure. Despite the grandiosity, entitlement, and inflated ego they display to the world, they are driven by a deep fear of inadequacy and unworthiness. They spend their lives constructing a false self, an illusion of perfection, superiority, and control, to cover up the fragile identity hiding underneath. That's why they need constant admiration, attention, and dominance. These things act like emotional anesthesia, numbing the deep-rooted pain they refuse to face. But the moment you say, I don't need you, you shine a blinding spotlight on that insecurity they've tried so hard to hide. This sentence isn't just rejection, it's exposure. It strips away their facade and reveals the truth. They are not needed, not special, not in control. And for someone who has built their entire identity around being needed, this is terrifying. They've worked tirelessly to convince you, and themselves, that they are the center of your world, that without them you'd be lost. But the minute you express independence, you disrupt that narrative. You confront them with the reality that their power was always borrowed, never earned. This triggers the narcissist's greatest fear, irrelevance. When you stop chasing their approval, when you stop reacting to their chaos, when you stop caring about their opinion, they are left with no fuel. Narcissists need emotional reactions, whether it's fear, adoration, anger, or guilt. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative as long as they are the source. So when you say, I don't need you, you're not just taking your power back. You're removing their supply. You're denying them the one thing they crave most, your emotional investment. That's why they'll often react with rage, denial, or manipulation. They'll try to flip the narrative, accuse you of being cold or ungrateful, or pretend they never cared in the first place. But deep down, they are crumbling because you just poked a hole in the very foundation of their false self. You reminded them that no matter how powerful they pretend to be, they're still at the mercy of the truth. And the truth is, they're not strong, they're scared of being exposed, abandoned, forgotten. And nothing exposes that fear more than your clarity, your independence, and your refusal to need them. For as long as a narcissist holds influence in your life, the power dynamic is rigged in their favor. They lead, you follow. They speak, you listen. They wound, you apologize. It becomes a cycle where they dominate emotionally, and you are conditioned to absorb blame, walk on eggshells, and suppress your truth just to keep the peace. This imbalance is exactly what they want because it ensures they remain superior while you remain unsure. But the moment you say, "I don't need you," you flip that entire dynamic on its head. That sentence signals a massive shift. It communicates that you're no longer seeking their validation, approval, or guidance. It tells them you've reclaimed your autonomy. Suddenly, the power they once wielded so confidently begins to dissolve. They're no longer the authority in your world. You are. You're no longer reacting to them. You're making decisions that serve you, not their ego. And for the first time, the narcissist is left scrambling for relevance. Narcissists depend on being in control of the emotional environment. When you're confused, uncertain, or insecure, they feel secure. But when you're calm, clear, and grounded, they begin to panic. Why? Because power isn't about who talks the loudest or who manipulates best. It's about who is in control of their own self. And when you declare your independence from their grip, they realize they have no real hold over you anymore. This reversal of power is often met with resistance. The narcissist might suddenly become overly charming, issuing fake apologies or promising to change, or they might lash out, calling you selfish, cold, or disloyal. These reactions are not genuine. They're tactics meant to restore the old dynamic where they held control. But if you stay rooted, if you hold firm in your truth, you make it impossible for them to manipulate you back into submission. What truly unsettles a narcissist isn't confrontation. It's indifference. When you say, "I don't need you," you're no longer participating in their game. You've stepped out of their control arena and into your own power. And from that place, you don't react. You respond. You don't beg, you decide. You don't follow. You lead. The power has shifted and they know it. The moment you say, "I don't need you," something powerful begins to happen inside of you. You start breaking free from the mental, emotional, and spiritual prison the narcissist built around you. That sentence becomes a turning point, a declaration that you are finally choosing you. It's not just about removing the narcissist from your life. It's about reconnecting with the version of yourself that existed before their influence, whole, confident, and enough. For so long, your identity may have been entangled with their approval. You are constantly walking on eggshells, managing their moods, trying to keep the peace, proving your worth. Over time, you may have forgotten how to speak your truth, trust your intuition, or even recognize your own need. But when you say, "I don't need you," you signal to yourself that you are ready to reclaim all of that. You begin to prioritize your healing, not their comfort, not their narrative, not their validation. Healing after narcissistic abuse is not a straight line. It comes with waves of grief, anger, confusion, and sometimes even guilt. But saying this sentence starts the engine of your recovery. It sends a message to your nervous system that the danger is over, that you no longer have to shrink or silence yourself to survive. It gives you space to breathe, reflect, and rediscover your strength. That's when clarity begins to replace confusion, peace begins to override chaos, and your self-worth begins to rise from the ashes. This stage of healing also involves setting boundaries that once felt impossible. You begin to say no without guilt. You begin to rest without shame. You begin to explore who you are without the narcissist's voice in your head. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself again. That's one of the greatest gifts of healing, the ability to hear your own inner voice louder than the lies they planted. Saying, "I don't need you," is more than an act of defiance. It's an act of self-love. It is the moment you start choosing your mental clarity over emotional chaos. It is the moment your body, mind, and soul start aligning toward restoration. Every step you take from this moment forward reinforces the truth that you are worthy of a life rooted in peace, not performance. One of the most unsettling experiences for a narcissist is being forced to sit with themselves without the distraction of controlling or manipulating others. When you say, "I don't need you," and truly mean it, not in anger, not in fear, but with calm finality, it forces them into a psychological space they avoid at all costs: introspection. Narcissists are masters of projection. They blame others, deflect responsibility, and construct false narratives to protect themselves from their own shame and emotional wounds. But your detachment strips away their usual escape routes. There's no argument to win, no reaction to provoke, no guilt to manipulate. There's just silence, and in that silence, their own reflection becomes unavoidable. They begin to feel the emptiness they've tried to cover with control. Without your energy to feed on, without your responses to validate their significance, they are left with the very void they've spent years denying. It's an uncomfortable mirror to stand in front of. Your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. It speaks to the loss of power, the collapse of a fantasy, and the reality that they are not in control of you anymore. This forced self-confrontation is terrifying for them. Narcissists don't know how to process shame in a healthy way. Instead of taking responsibility, they often spiral, either internally through deep, hidden self-loathing or externally through rage, blame, or desperate attempts to win back control. They may seek out new supply quickly, trying to replicate what they lost. But even in new dynamics, your detachment lingers in their psyche, reminding them that someone saw through the mask and walked away. What they truly fear is not just your rejection, but what it says about them. Your ability to detach implies that they are not essential, not as powerful or irresistible as they believed. It punctures the inflated image they hold of themselves. And even if they never admit it, your decision forces them to feel what they inflict on others: abandonment, inadequacy, and rejection. This moment can either push them deeper into denial or, rarely, into reflection. But the catalyst is always the same: your detachment. By removing your energy, you expose the hollowness they try so hard to hide. You force the question they never want to ask themselves: who am I without control?